Welcome to today's episode where we're going to talk about your child's journey and how you can help them in terms of deciding what you're going to do at what point in time in their journey. My guest today is a colleague, a friend, Jake Rother, and Jake is a coach of some note and some long standing experience. I'm going to let him tell a little bit about himself.
Thanks, Coach Dewey. Happy to be here. My name is Jake Rother, like Coach Dewey had said. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, born and raised. My dad has been a coach for 40 plus years now, so I've been playing since I was 3 years old. I got the racket in my hand. Played junior tennis all the way through nationals and Texas. Was a decently ranked tennis player in the juniors. Went on and played junior college at Tyler Junior College. Got to be an All-American there. Win a national championship, which was fantastic, super fun experience. Then went on to Indiana University, and then ultimately finished my college career at University of Texas at San Antonio, where we also were able to have a decent amount of success, winning conference titles and achieving some pretty high rankings, especially for a mid-major program. Right after college, I started coaching right away. So I started out coaching collegiately. I coached at the Division II level at St. Mary's University, as well as then going on to the Division I level, where I coached at Montana State University and Harvard as well. I've coaching has been a passion of mine, and so after Harvard, I decided I wanted to go more into the junior realm, as that's always where my heart has been set. So I made a transition to go to be the head pro at Barnes Tennis Center in San Diego. A lot of you might know Barnes as the home of the girls' nationals, or So Kalamazoo, as some called it. But now a lot of you might know Barnes for running several very high-level pro events, a lot of ITFs. Ryan Redondo, the CEO, GM there, has really revamped the place, and I was lucky to be a part of that process with him and Steve Adamson. Thankfully, all roads led back to home, and I made my way back to the Austin Tennis Academy, where Coach Jack Newman was kind enough to let me come back into the fold as a coach this time, instead of a player as I was in my junior days. And so now I'm in the process of, I've been at ATA for the last 2 years, and I've been trying my best to make a difference and help juniors at ATA get better. My primary focus right now would be younger players from ages 10 to 14. We have a really good group that I'm really excited about, and they're having some good results, and more importantly, their development is going really well, in my opinion at least.
Let's jump into what that process looks like. When I was a young coach, I very much said, I want to work with players who have at least 3 years left in juniors, right? So I didn't want the 17, 18-year-old to come to me when they were almost done. I felt like it took 3 years in order for what the player played like to be fully what we had done together or what we had decided to leave in from what was before, and have it be a true reflection of what that looks like. With you spending your time with the younger players at this point in time, you get lots of time.
Yeah, I think that's really important to me. I agree with what you're saying. I mean, I think it takes a certain amount of time for, I guess, old habits to be fleshed out and new thought to be put into their game. I think that's why I really like the younger kids. They don't have any. They have bad habits, but they're easily broken down. There's a motor development threshold from it's like ages 9 to 12, and I think it obviously depends player to player on when they start hitting puberty and such. But that threshold, they're just able to grasp new concepts and learn new skills so much easier, and get rid of the old ones as well. Grip changes, technique changes, footwork, you name it, they're able to pick up on it super fast.
So is that essentially what would be referred to as long-term athletic development? So understanding, what's best to put in at different times, because what is somebody's body most able to do, right? So we don't take 10-year-old into the gym and start pumping weights because they're just not going to be able to do that. So understanding aerobic versus anaerobic and how you develop those various systems
Yeah,
within the body.
I think that's exactly it. I think these players are primed to learn and to become athletes rather than tennis players. I think that was a thing when I was growing up, that the specialization was starting to happen so early. And it was, 11 years old, 12 years old, no other sports, nothing else going on, play tennis 6 hours a day. And I think I feel like I'm a testament to that I'm a very good tennis player. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a great athlete. And I think that
Because your
held me
dad had you
back.
playing tennis mostly at a
Yeah, it was
fairly
just the
early
thought
age.
process. And I mean, to be honest, it felt like it was the thought process of the USTA. My dad was crazy about going to every conference he could and soaking up every bit of information that he could. And at the time, that seemed to be the prevailing thought of, get the forehand reps down, get the backhand reps down, make sure they know how to serve well. And, along the way, they'll become a good mover and they'll become a better athlete. Where, as these days, at least in my head, taking it kind of from the Spanish or more European mindset of develop the base, the footwork, the feet first, and everything else kind of comes together after that. I think it's so important. We watch pro tennis these days, and you got Alcaraz with his, hand up here, and who knows what Medvedev's doing. And, on the girls' side, I think they're a little bit more technically sound, some would say. But still, there's a lot of variation. But where there's not very much variation is they get behind the ball, they can put their body weight through the ball, and you can't do that without good feet and being a good athlete.
Yeah, I think I've said for a long time one of the many Deweyisms is tennis is a running sport. It's not a hand-eye coordination
Right.
sport. If you can't
Yeah.
get to the ball, be on balance, then you
Doesn't
can't
matter.
do what you want. It just
Yeah.
doesn't matter. So your thoughts on the value of what red, orange, and green brought to the table is, do you think that, yeah, maybe not, or yes, that, I mean, because I think the thought behind red, orange, and green was the game would grow along with the child. So the footwork patterns and things would resemble what an adult would do on a big court with a yellow ball.
Sure. I think there's a place for red, orange, and green. I don't necessarily agree with maybe the guidelines that we currently use by age and everything like that. I think it's more based on ability. You have some 7 and 8 year olds that are able to move in a way that they are able to get the ball in their strike zone every time. They are able to hit with topspin and everything like that the red, orange, and green balls can help with. But as soon as they're able to do those things, I think getting them to the yellow ball as quickly as possible just to me makes the most common sense. We're competing with yellow balls. We're not. I know we have the red, orange, and green tournaments, but we're not playing with those when we get older. So the quicker that we can get accustomed to the yellow ball, the better off I think
So
there
should
are.
we be starting players with full swing shapes? Because I think the whole thought of the lower compression and it was, as I said, the game grows along with the child, and so things would be, more abbreviated, shorter backswings and shorter follow-throughs with a red ball, because red balls don't really take spin as
Right,
much,
as
and so
well.
some of those things. But as they move up to work on different swing paths, swing shapes, but if we're talking about moving a kid to yellow ball really early, are we talking about starting someone with a full swing and showing them that entire swing path?
I think, if we're talking about starting a player from the very beginning, they have not really been introduced to tennis much. I think I would start them with learning contact. I think contact is something that isn't appreciated enough in our sport. So teaching them this is where we make contact, this is what contact should look like, and working backwards from there. I don't think I would take a player right away and teach them a full, unit turn, what have you. I think we would work backwards from there and then create the bigger stroke. But ultimately, if we have several 1 hour lessons, within 3 or 4 lessons, if I'm doing my job to the best of its ability, that player should have a full stroke by the time that's completed.
Have you ever heard of a program which I know used to exist, I don't know if it does any longer, in Russia called Spartak?
Yep, absolutely.
And so its concept was we're not even allowing the players on court until they look perfect.
Yeah,
And there were, many Russian pros that came out of that
that
system,
mindset, yeah.
which didn't focus on the mental part, but it was very much a technique first
Right. Well,
program.
it's a funny thing, right? Because I think you say it wasn't a mental thing, but it absolutely was. There's a current player that I have the pleasure of working with that their father was a gold medalist for the Soviet Union, and I asked him about
In
mental
tennis?
training. No, sorry, in gymnastics.
Ah.
And I did happen to, I was curious. I asked him about, what did y'all do for mental training? And he laughed at me and said, "What mental training? What is mental training? We trained, and that was it. And you're either strong enough to get through the training or you weren't, and that was it."
But I wonder if there isn't a difference right there fundamentally talked about early specialization. Gymnastics is a closed skill
Requires it,
sport,
right.
right? So you're doing the same thing, same number of steps, same every single time. Where tennis is an open skill sport, right? Different balls coming at you, different speed, different spin. You're moving from a different place, getting to it, trying to do something different with it, and the number of permutations is infinite.
Endless, yeah.
So is that a place where the mental skill is really just train, do it exactly the same, which is what was applied to tennis
Right.
at Spartak,
Yeah.
as opposed to some that might say teaching from a tactical perspective rather than a technical perspective, and then kind of closing it down when the player needs to learn something new.
I mean, I think these two things go hand in hand. I think the overriding theme is the standard that's set. I think if the standard that was set at Spartak, and the standard that was set clearly for this gentleman and his gymnastic training was extremely high. So the expectation was full effort, full focus at all times. There was nothing else. There was no other way. That's it. So I think you can skin the cat either way. I think you can skin the cat where you teach a player technique first, and we're gonna do this until your arm falls off, and it's gonna feel great. You're gonna look fantastic, and you can go the other way where you're gonna teach them that technical stuff. I mean, as well as I, in Spain, the first thing they're learning is how to move. The first thing they're learning is put the ball over there. Can you put the ball over there? Do it however you're gonna do it. Figure it out. Figure out how to put that ball over there with the shape that we want. How you're going to do it is how you're going to do it. So I think there are different ways to do it, but the one thing that must remain is the standard. If the standard is set high enough, any player, regardless of their ability, technical or athletic, can achieve great things day in and day out.
I think you hit the nail on the head of the most important overriding principle is an awareness of standards. If you don't know what that standard is, you're never going to approach it, right? So friends and I have had this discussion for many years of what would happen if a family were shipwrecked on an island and there were nothing but an unlimited supply of tennis equipment, and so the whole family played all day every day, and somebody became the best of it, right? And so they were there for 10 years and then they come back, and whoever's the best, and at that point in time it's probably one of the kids, and they go, and could they compete in the US Open, even though that's all they had to do all day every day, but they had no awareness of standards.
No, yeah, and I think, in my opinion, they wouldn't be very good.
I think
They probably wouldn't be very good. They're gonna have some interesting technique. They're gonna have some interesting ways of doing things, but they might have some great footwork. I don't know, but yeah, I think you have to have that awareness of where I'm trying to get to, and as long as you have a target in sight, you can at least have an idea of how to get there, what I need to do to get there. I get labeled as a tough coach. I pride myself on being a tough coach and holding a high standard for a lot of players. a lot of players will come and do their first session with me, and they'll come off the court and they'll say, "That was the hardest lesson I've ever had." And I'm like, "Good. That's great. That every lesson is going to get harder and harder. If you think that one was hard, just wait till you come back the next one. And if you don't want to come back, that's okay. But just know that it's not getting any easier from here. This is just the way it is. I'm trying to create a great athlete and a great tennis player, and ultimately a great person, because that's what comes from those things. And life is tough. So if you're not ready to be tough with it, then I don't know, you're going to be in for a tough one yourself."
So how do the parents play into that? Because can you be that tough coach if the parent is also a tough coach? Or is it easier if the parent's a marshmallow? Or what does that look
Well,
like?
it can go both ways. I think the parent needs to hold the line and hold the standard at home. My dad used to always tell me there's a triangle there. You have your academics, you have your athletic, and you have your social life. You can't have an even triangle. There's something has to be given up. And if you're trying to be a great tennis player and you're trying to go to a great college, then that social life is the thing that takes a hit, right? But you as an individual have to figure out what's going to take the hit. So as far as the parenting is concerned, I try to work with, as a coach, I try to work with the parent's personality. If I have a parent that I can see is very, I don't know if overbearing is the right word, but they are there a lot. They're very into what's going on, and they're quite tough on their child. Okay, then that means I'm still going to be tough, but I'm going to be a lot more positive in my approach. I'm going to be a lot more, again, not delicate. Delicate's not the right word. 'Cause I'm, again, still going to be tough and still hold the intensity up. But I'm going to be a lot more welcoming of, "Hey, that was a great effort. Great job. That's it." And then it goes into coaching the parent as well. And, "Hey, look, I'm all for you being tough and holding that high standard, but let's make sure that we're rewarding the right thing." So oftentimes what I see is, "Oh, coach, they're not winning. They're losing. Why are they losing?" And then I'll hear from the player, "Yeah, my dad yelled at me after I lost that match." Well, what was the score? Oh, 7-6, 7-6. It was a really close match, 2.5 hours. It was a battle. Wow, you clearly gave all your effort. Yeah, I tried really hard. So why are we upset? And so then that's when we bring the parent in and say, what are we upset about here? "Well, they didn't win that important point. They got really tight at the 5-all in the tiebreaker." And I'm like, yeah, that's a tight moment. I'm getting my heart rate's elevating just thinking about it. Like that, of course you're tight. This is a normal part of the development. So we're not going to get upset with them for losing. Now, if we're losing, the famous 7-6, 6-0, that's the famous one, right? I lose the tight first set and then 6-0. Now we have a reason to be upset, because clearly that player didn't give full effort going into that second set. Clearly there was a letdown in, mental effort or physical effort, and now we have something to be upset
But
about.
don't those just present learning opportunities? I mean, it makes
Correct.
it easy
That's
to
it.
identify
Yeah.
what's going on. So
Yeah.
where do we need to spend our time? So if we're taking that
100%.
information directly from the match court, and
Yep.
then that's where we're spending our time, as opposed to working on our backhand down the line
Exactly.
some more.
Yeah. It goes from worrying so much about their technique to worrying about how tough are they. So then it goes into drills that, I like to tell them that they're not learning until they're hurting. We're doing this drill, it's going to hurt. Can you get through 30 seconds of pain or not? If you can endure 30 seconds of pain, you can endure more going into that match court. And, there's no way points don't last 30 seconds, so we're overtraining in that aspect.
So you an advocate? I had a philosophy. I actually had a deal that I made with every player that I coached for a long time of, if you go out on the court, the match court, and do what we've agreed you're going to work on, you get credit for all the wins. I'll take the blame for all the losses and take the
Absolutely.
pressure off and say to everybody, no, just give it a couple of years or give it some
Yeah.
time, and she is doing exactly what they were supposed to be doing. But if you go out and decide that you're just going to wing it, the next interaction we have on the
You're on your
practice
own.
court is
Yeah.
going to be very interesting, so to
Right.
speak.
Yeah.
Some come to Jesus moments.
Yeah.
Um,
I would say I abide by that train of thought as well, that philosophy to an extent. I think they can get too caught up in losing. It can really damage your psyche at some point where you learn almost how to lose. Even though you're doing the right things, you end up learning how to lose. So I think there is some benefit to learning how to win in a sense.
I think it's
Um,
possible to do both. I mean, I think of
mm,
the story that I look at, which was a problem solve one, was this little girl. She was really good. Lost in the finals of girls 12 clays to Madison Keys.
mm,
That really good.
yeah.
And then the next year, she was learning to hit a slice backhand.
Mm,
And I told her she needed to play the entire tournament using her slice backhand. The person she played in the finals was a rival, very good, born the same day actually,
wow.
who ended up playing at Stanford.
Nice.
And I said, you need to use your slice backhand the whole tournament.
Mm,
You can't use your two-hander, which was at that point in time her
tough.
best shot. And she gets in the finals and she starts losing.
Mm,
And one of the coaches who works for me says to her at the fence coaching, but just use your backhand.
yeah.
And she said, no, Coach Dewey said, can't use my backhand.
Right.
And she ended up pulling out the match.
Mm,
But what she did was she decided for the first time ever to move her feet and look for forehands in the
Yeah,
middle
there
of
you
the
go.
court.
yeah.
So she
Figured it
did
out.
what she was told to do. She didn't.
Right.
She used her slice backhand,
Yeah.
but she came up with a problem-solving solution which enabled her to live within the letter of what was being asked, yet problem solve, and that was
Yeah,
the-
no, that's the way that she learned how to win, right? She figured it out. She
Right.
problem solved, which is such a hard thing. I think that's something where it's hard for parents to see, is, well, you're just letting them do this. No, this is part of the process. They're learning how not to do it right now, And if I get in the way of that, then I am destroying a learning moment for them right now. And who am I to take that away from them?
Coach Jake will be back with me real soon talking about summer and how do you prepare for that summer grind, those first tournaments of the summer, the sectional championship type events, and how your performance in those events will determine what you get to do later in the summer. Come on back soon. If you like this, come on back, subscribe, hit the notification bell, do all those things that they ask you to do on YouTube. See you then.